Hello and welcome to yet another video. My name is Matt Cervantes and I am a computer science professor at Butte College. In this video, I'm going to be discussing various tips and tricks that you can use to help you when you're doing research online. And I'm going to be focusing this video primarily for folks who are or will be taking a programming class from me. But honestly, many of the things that I'll be discussing are applicable to any kind of online research you might be doing. But I will be focusing mostly on tricks and tips for like kind of like programmers. Um, so with that said, I'm going to just jump right in. I'm actually going to start us off with something that's kind of tangentially related to researching things online, and that is a search engine. Now, for this video, I'm definitely going to be using Google, um, and that's mostly because it's by far the most popular and widely used search engine in the whole world. But I do want to take a minute here to talk about well, at least mention that it's not the only search engine and mention some of the alternatives and maybe talk about some of the differences. So obviously Google is the top of the list here. It needs no introduction. But there's another one here that's really popular in the US, and that's Bing. That's Microsoft's search engine, right? There's another one called Yandex, which is a really big search engine in like Russia and other regions that are kind of outside of the US. Dogpile is another one that I've used in the past. You know, I don't use it very much now, but it actually is sort of like a search engine for search engines. It grabs results from Google and Bing and Yandex and Yahoo and other places. So it kind of has its own little niche that it works in. DuckDuckGo is another one that I've used in the past. Its big claim to fame is it's really focused on privacy and making sure that your information isn't tracked, which is something that really should be a big deal for everyone, and that's definitely not Google's deal. So I don't use it as much now, but it's a cool one. Ask or ask.com, that's been around forever. Yahoo, it's still around. I know people might not know that, but it's still there. And there are many, many, many. I could fill up this entire screen with all of the search engines that are actually out there. And honestly, I'm only mentioning this because I want everyone to be aware that there are multiple options. When it comes to research, though, really the biggest difference that from one search engine to another is really just the algorithm that one search engine uses to deliver its results versus another. And an algorithm is really just sort of the process that search engine uses to come up with the result. It's sort of the secret sauce, the thinking process that it uses. So, for example, Google, they have stated many times that many times that they don't use social media signals to rank search results that you get from them. And basically, what that means is they don't use, or supposedly they don't use things like the number of followers or likes that you have on Facebook or Twitter. They don't use those numbers as a way to give somebody higher or lower ranking on the search results, right? So if you're like Taylor Swift with like a million billion, Twitter followers, the fact that your Taylor Swift doesn't, and you have all those followers, that by itself will not make articles about you, or if she were to publish a webpage, that's not going to make it go up in the search engine, um, supposedly, because that's not what Google, that's not part of their algorithm, right? If you can contrast that with Bing, on the other hand, who Microsoft has been very clear that they absolutely use social media signals to give higher or lower rankings to the search results that pop up there. And so, with that in mind, like if you're using Google all the time, right, you may not, and you search for something, you may not necessarily get the same exact results back as you do with Bing because the algorithm that they use is a little bit different. Right? And that's just something that can definitely have an effect on when you're researching stuff. So it's important to understand the advantages to using one search engine over another. Now there are many other differences. I mentioned what they are a minute ago. Like I said, like DuckDuckGo is big on privacy. Yandex is a little bit more region specific. There are other search engines that are for other very specific, more esoteric reasons why you might want to use one over another. like I said, I'm going to use Google, but I just wanted to point out that there are other options, and so something to consider when you're doing your research. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the actual searching on Google. Okay, so for this example, I'm just going to pick something that's a really common like topic in computer science that everyone pretty much learns if you're in computer science, and that's how to sort numbers. So I'm going to do a really super generic kind of naive search for how to do that. So I'm going to say how to sort numbers in a computer program. Bam, you get a whole bunch of results, right? And so one of the very first things I want to mention when you do any kind of a search is you want to scroll around here, and this is something you're going to see. You're going to see ads, right? And that's something that I'm going to say right off the top. You're probably just going to want to filter these out. Just don't even. I wouldn't even click on them. And I'm pretty sure that nowadays they're legally required to like tell you that it's an ad, which is kind of nice because it makes it easy for you to just sort of go like, all right, I can ignore that. And the reason is that obviously an ad is going to try to sell you something, and you're trying to get information, not necessarily have a product sold to you. So I would argue that these are probably not something that you're gonna want to even look at. They're kind of sneaky. Sometimes they're at the very bottom, like they were here, and sometimes they're at the top. So just be aware of that. So that's kind of my first tip in the search result tips. Ignore the ads. All right. Now, moving past that, let's go ahead and take a look at maybe one other thing that I don't know that everyone always does, and that's this idea of when you get the results, people often look at the title of the page that they're going to look at, right? But I actually really encourage, especially programmers, take a look at this URL that you're at, right? Because this is really where you're about to go. You're about to go somewhere that's something from some place called beginnersbooks.com, right? Or if we scroll down a little further, you can go to geeksforgeeks.org. Here's another one from geeksforgeeks.org. Here's one from support from Apple, right? Here's onlinenumbertools.com, right? And these are where you're actually going when you click on any one of these links. And the reason why that matters is because as you do research, especially in computer science, but I'm sure it's true in other disciplines, um, as you do research on a topic, you're going to find yourself going back to similar places over and over and over again. And it's a good idea to become familiar with those where those places are. And the URL is basically telling you where that is. So you can see that this Geeks for Geeks place popped up a couple times, right? So when you find a place like that that you really like Geeks for Geeks, let's just use them as an example. So let's say I click in here. I'm gonna just go to. You might read some articles from this website and think, I just want to be able to get to this place. This is going to be a place that I go and search a lot. So I'm going to go to their landing page, right, which is right here at geeksforgeeks.org, and I'm going to say, go ahead and just bookmark this page. Most browsers are going to have the exact same way to bookmark. I'm using Firefox right now, and that's just to use this little star up at the top here. So if you click on that, if you're on a page and you want to make sure that you can come back to it very easily, you can just click on that right there. I'm going to put it in other bookmarks. You can add tags. You can rename what it's going to be put in the bookmark as. Hit done, right? And then look, it even tells me it stores it over here. And now if I ever leave here, so let's say I go back to just Google, right? I can click here, bookmarks, right? And look what's there, Geeks for Geeks, and boom, I'm back to the page, right? So that's kind of nice if you ever find a place that you really like, and that's where knowing those URLs can be really handy. So that's what this is about. Looking at the URL is a very handy thing to get used to doing when you're looking at search results. And then also becoming familiar with good sources. So you saw me, I just bookmarked it. There's another thing you can do called pinning a tab. I'm putting in here, I'm not going to demonstrate it. Most browsers support this, but the idea is that you can pin the tab and then that tab will open automatically every time you open the browser. Now, I personally don't use this feature all the time, but I've seen folks who do, and it's for sites that they constantly are heading to. It's another good idea for helping you get to the information you want as quickly as possible. All right, so let's say I'm in here. I've been doing my stuff. I got my search results. But when you're doing stuff with computer science or computer programming, another nice thing to look at is, and I'll zoom in a little so you can see this a little better, is the publish date. Now, not every website is going to have them. In fact, in this particular search, pretty much none of them have them. Let's see if I can find one. Keep going, keep going. Oh, okay, cool. This one does. So this one right here has a published date, and you can always see it. It's this part right here. It'll usually be right below the name of the title of the page, and this is telling you when this article or this web page was published. And that's a really useful bit of information, especially in computer science, because recency really matters. How new or old information that you're about to look at can be a make a big difference when you're researching something. Because in computer programming, things are changing all the time. New libraries, new languages, new features, new all sorts of stuff. And so even though the information that you see here, it might actually have been perfectly valid and useful information back in 2013, 7 years ago, right? But now maybe that's obsolete. Maybe there's a newer or a better way to do that, or a more correct way, or a more established and standardized way to do the exact same thing. So looking at that published date is another great tool you have for kind of filtering out really old or something that maybe you don't even want to look at initially. Not every website does this, but a lot of them do. So looking at the resource publish date, if it's available, is a very handy tool. Okay, so now let's say I'm looking at my search results. All right, I'm seeing some stuff here that I want to go take a look at. Let's go ahead and click on this sorting algorithms again. All right, and let's say I'm looking through here and I'm getting some good information. I like what I'm seeing. I might go back now and continue searching to look to see if I can find more stuff. And that's a really important thing that I suggest everyone do, really regardless of the discipline. But this is also very true in computer science and computer programming. You're going to want to validate the information that you got in more than one place. And so a little trick that I like to do is I like to, if I go to a site and I like what I'm reading, I will then go back to the search results page like I am now, and then I'll just right click, open in a new tab, right? And then this will just stay here, and then I can go back over here, right? And I can keep doing my search now, and this information is just there, waiting for me to get used whenever I need to. So let's say I do that, I came down there, and now let's say I go over here to, I don't know, um, sort three numbers at pages.mtu.edu. So this is probably a college or a school of some sort. Sort three numbers. I click here, and now I'm reading through this. This has got, it looks like a nice little kind of pseudocode algorithm. I'm looking through. I like this stuff. I like this stuff. Again, I'm like this information I like, and it correlates well with this information I had here. I'm going to go ahead and right click on it, and bam, I have another tab open, right? And you can just keep doing this. You can just sort of keep searching through your results, finding information that definitely supports the other information you're getting. And then you have a nice, easy way to compare and contrast. You can just go in here. I can look at this. Oh, this says to do something, right? I'll come back over here now. Oh, yeah, this said something similar to that, right? And that's a great way that you can validate the information that you're getting to make sure that it's accurate. So that's another one. So after the publish date, confirm your research by going to multiple sources. This is a very good system to establish the validity, or to kind of reinforce that the information you're getting is good. And opening them up in separate tabs is a great way to do that. Now, there's one other one here I'm going to mention. It's particularly for articles that you really don't want to forget. It had something really, really like an awesome little tip or an awesome little trick or just some general information that you might want to go revisit again. I'm going to consider or recommend using something like Pocket, which is an app that I use sometimes for saving stuff for later, and I'm going to demonstrate that really quick. But there are other tools that are like this. So let's say that I went to this sort three numbers, right? So it's right here. And I saw this and I was like, man, this is some great information. Like, and I'm probably going to want to have this on hand for later. Well, I could bookmark this, and that's totally acceptable way to do it. But oftentimes, if it's a very specific article, if I don't want to just do a bookmark, another system that I tend to like to use is Pocket. Now, I think it's baked into Firefox, but you can get this exact same extension for other ones. It's this little thing right here, Save to Pocket. And what it basically does is if I find an article I really like, I click that, it saves it to my account. So I had to make a little account with this site called Pocket. Oh, and it went away really quick, right? And then you can even add tags to it. So I could say like, okay, well, this is about sorting, sorting, and then maybe it's sorting numbers, right? And then any other tag I can think of, I'll just put those two for now, right? And then I hit save, right? It adds the tags to this site, right? And now if I ever want to come back to this, here's what I can do. I can go over here to Pocket, right? I'll go here to getpocket.com, right? And I'm already logged in. And this will just give me a list of every single thing I've ever added into my Pocket, right? And I like this tool. So far it's pretty similar to what you would do with like a bookmark, right? I can search on the tags. So I've made several tags over the years of using this tool, and I can just look at things that are of that similar type. So if I wanted to search, what did I just put in there? Sorting, right? So I have a sorting tag that I just created, right? And look what's there. It's this page that I just did 2 minutes ago. And so it's very easy for me to search for. Probably one of the biggest features about this tool, and the main reason I'm showing you it as opposed to just using bookmarks or pinning or something, is that what Pocket will do is it'll actually create a copy of this. So if this site ever were to go down, you could visit the copy that was made of it rather than the original site. Now, for something that I just did this quickly, I don't know that it'll actually support that. So right now, it actually is taking me back there. But I have visited sites. In fact, here let's see if I can find maybe one of my older ones. So we'll go back here, my list. I don't know, something that I've done a long time ago, maybe static. Okay, cool. You can see here that this is not the original site. In fact, you can even look up here at the top. I'm at app.getpocket.com. I'm not at the original site, right? I'm at a copy that was made, and I can go to the original site right here by clicking View Original, right? And that'll actually open up the original website that I was reviewing, right? But if this site ever went down, I actually have a copy of all of the information that was in that article. So I don't really lose it even if the site goes away. And this is one of the things I like about this tool. So I don't want to plug it too much, but that's a nice little feature. And in the end, it really is just supporting this idea of being able to have good sources of information and being able to compare and contrast that information with other information. So again, we got confirm your sources from multiple places, and whatever tools you can think of to do that are the best. And here's just a couple of suggestions that I have. The last tip I'm going to do on this section here is when you search for something, you may notice you get a ton of results. Look how many results I got here. This is like a crazy huge number, right? And yet, there's definitely not that many being displayed in this list, right? There's probably like 10 or so, right? What I don't see a lot of people do, most people will just research, right, if they don't find what they want. But another great tip is it's okay to just come down here and click the next button and go to another, the next page of results, and they're going to be different. And I spoke about this earlier about the different algorithms that are used for ranking search results. Well, I mean, just because something like, Wikipedia is a pretty good source. Just because it didn't make the top 10 list or whatever doesn't mean that this isn't valid, useful information. So don't be afraid to click this next button or even just go down a few, maybe the second, third, even fourth page in if you want to find more results. So that's kind of my last tip. Go to the second, third page of your search results. So now I want to talk a little bit about reviewing a web page that you're visiting and quickly getting at the information that is the most pertinent to what you're trying to research at the time. So I'm going to go ahead and just get back over here to the first set of results. And so let's take a look here. So let's see which one that might be a good one to start us off with. Let's go with this one. Let's see what we got here. This will work fine. So this is a classic example of a programming web page, and it's actually going to highlight one of the first things that I wanted to mention, and that's actually a repeat of something I just did, and that is the ignoring the ads. So look over here, this thing popped up. I don't know what this is, and look, this is trying to get me to refinance today. Isn't that great? most time when you go to a web page, you're going to have ads. This is just the world we live in now. And there's going to be ads on like the right hand side, usually on the left hand side. They take up usually the bottom, the top. Look, this has a coupon at the top. I don't know what that is. And if you keep going down, I'm sure there's probably even more advertising stuff. Look, even, well, this has some privacy policy stuff at the bottom. So that's sort of my first tip when you're looking at any kind of a web page. It's very similar to the search results. Ignore the ads. I'm going to get out of this one because I'm not a big fan of this particular one. Let's go one of these other ones that we looked at earlier. How about we go over to our sort 3 numbers, okay? So let's say you got this open and you're looking through it, and you're trying to research how to sort numbers. Well, this is one of the nice things about doing something with computer science, is that oftentimes if you're doing some sort of a technical search, there are some key words that you're looking for. And so instead of necessarily reading the entire article, which sometimes they can be very lengthy, I'm going to suggest that you maybe just scan the article. And a really useful way to do that is to use one other little tool at your disposal on a computer, and that is using Ctrl-F. So when I go into this page, let's say I'm looking for the word sort, right? So all I can do is I can hit on my keyboard Control and then the F key. And look what shows up at the bottom left here. This is where it shows up in Firefox. And other browsers, that little find might show up in other places. I think on Chrome it shows up at the top. But in any case, it shows up here. And then you can just search for a specific word. So let's say I wanted to look for the word sort. Well, as soon as I type the word sort, look what happened on the page. It highlights that word, right? And then I can just up and down arrows that allow me to just go through every spot in the page that has that word. So this allows me to, this just enhances my ability to scan the page for the information that I think is the most relevant. I don't want sort anymore. Let's say I want to go with number. Let's say, well, there's numbers right there. I can just hit enter. I don't even have to hit those arrows. I can just keep hitting enter. There's numbers, there's numbers, there's numbers. I can see I can just keep scanning through them, right? I don't like that. I could do a different kind of search. Let's say I'm looking for variable. Oh, that one doesn't actually show up anywhere. So notice how down here, and this might be a little hard to see, down here, look, it's saying that there is, the word variable literally never shows up at all in this, on this page, and that's okay. And that actually can be useful sometimes if you know you're looking for a specific word and you do the Control-F and you type the word and it doesn't show up anywhere. That's fantastic because that's your signal like, well, this isn't going to be the page for me, and you're out of there. You go back over to your search results, find another page. So obviously I just talked about ignoring the ads. But scanning for what you're researching is a very good way to start looking at a web page. If this page is not going to have the information that is useful for you, then you need to figure that out as quickly as possible. So rather than necessarily jumping into a long read, you can just kind of scan. And a great tool for scanning is Control-F. Control-F is your friend. Is probably one of the most utilized tools that any programmer has in their research arsenal, is the ability to just quickly scan around for keywords that will get them at the information they want. And the last thing I wanted to mention here is that, especially for programmers who are researching stuff, oftentimes it is the case that people will post their code, will actually post algorithms or little bits of code, snippets of code that you can utilize. And in those situations, so let's see if this one had any. Do you have any in here? No. So let's go. Maybe we can find one. In fact, I think this one that we visited a minute ago might have had one. So look, this person actually wrote some code in here for you. So this is the last bit of advice that I have. Use Control C and Control V, or copy and paste. Copy and paste is absolutely your friend when it comes to extracting a little bit of information out of a web page and putting it into, probably into a development environment of some sort, into your text editor. So in this case, if I was like, man, this looks like great code, I love this, you just highlight the part you want, right? Control C, and then for the sake of this video, I'll just open up Notepad, Control V, and there's all my code, right? And now I have it, and I can start to play with it. And this honestly kind of highlights the last thing I want to talk about here with reviewing a web page in particular, or doing research in computer science, is that I would argue that for for computer programming and frankly any kind of applied science, which programming definitely falls into that category, it actually tends to be a lot easier to validate the credibility of the information that you're getting because you can just do it. Like you can just take that information, like I did here, copy it straight out of the page that you're on, and then run it through a compiler. And if it works, right? Um, and this is the sort of the nice thing about an applied science is that you can do it yourself. You can validate the information yourself. And honestly, there's usually a very discrete or unambiguous answer to your research questions. And so take advantage of the fact that you're doing an applied science. Take advantage of the fact that you can just take that information that you get from whatever source, from beginnerbook.com, right? And then just do something with it. And if it ends up being something that's useful to you, if it ends up being something that worked and you understood it, then that's the place that you want to throw into Pocket, or that's the place that you want to put into your bookmark. That's the place you might want to go back and look at again because you can validate that information for yourself. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was, and for here I'm just going to go back to our search results, is I wanted to kind of further elaborate on the search results. I talked a lot about the kind of the tips and tricks about validating with the URL and ignoring the ads and for stuff when you do a search. But no matter what, if you do a search, there's a very real possibility that you're just not going to get information that you is either relevant or wasn't, didn't have what you needed or whatever. And you might even go, to the 10th page and it's just not there. And so when that happens, and it's absolutely going to happen, you're going to want to have different ways to get different results back. And so I just want to talk about different ways that you can do to do just that. And the very first way that I'm going to discuss is using multiple search strings. And this is probably the most straightforward and I don't know, natural way that most people instinctually think to do. So obviously I did this search initially for how to sort numbers in a computer program. Well, that is not a particularly great search. I actually kind of wrote that naively on purpose because I wanted to show that like if you don't do a very good search string, you're gonna get kind of weird stuff. So like I got an Apple support thing here that clearly has nothing to do with it. I have something here that's probably talking about online number tools. Yeah, I'm not interested in that, right? And it's because my search string itself was not very good. And so there's lots of ways that you can refine your search string. Oftentimes, if you don't know exactly what you're searching for when you do the initial search, like I did, you can put in sort of a naive search, and then the best thing to do here would be to then look at some of the articles, like we did here with the sorting algorithms. And if you didn't know the word algorithm beforehand, right? Well, you went to something, you saw this, and if this is actually has a lot more to do with what I'm interested in is this word that I didn't know before. Well, now I know the word. So the most natural thing for people to do is they come up here and you might say something like how to sort numbers, algorithm. Look at that, it's already filling it in for me, right? And so that's just changing the wording will absolutely. So now look, I have completely different results. There's a whole bunch. Now algorithm shows up all over the place, right? So changing the word. In fact, the other thing I would mention too is that you probably want to get rid of these things that say like how to. Now, the way that Google's search algorithm works is it will take some things into account, like it'll use the how to or who is or whatever. It has some pretty intuitive brains in the background that'll kind of sometimes that can be useful. Personally, I've always found to be just as consistent as possible, as few words as you possibly need to describe the thing you're after. So if you have a lot of fluffy extra words like how do I or what is the or anything like that, that's unnecessary. Almost always you can just put in the basic keywords and that'll get you much closer to what you're looking for and it'll kind of remove some of the fluff, right? So that's sort of my first tip there. For programming in particular, there's some very specific things you can do to make your life really good. So for instance, I'm saying I want to learn how to sort numbers, right? So maybe let's go with sorting numbers algorithm. That actually seems like probably a better search. Oh boy, look at this. all kinds of stuff. Now, you could be trying to just learn generically how to sort algorithms, in which case this is probably just fine. But if you're programming in a specific language, right, you might want to know an algorithm for doing it in Java, let's say. Well, when that happens, that's kind of my first tip here is put the name of the language as the first word in your algorithm. So in this case, I said Java first, and then after that, then I put what I'm actually interested in knowing, and that will refine the search, so it'll start looking for things with Java in it. So now when I start looking around, sorting in Java, look, this is the original one I went to. So my assumption here is that there is something, the word Java should be in here, and you can always kind of confirm that by hitting Ctrl-F like we did earlier. Java, spelling it correctly. Oh, look, Java shows up right there. Right, so there is clearly a way, but that site didn't look really good. This one is literally saying what I want, sorting in Java, right? So that's great. And then but we can, to confirm that this would have worked for something else, let's go with like, I don't know, C++ sorting numbers. And now we get a whole other thing. Here's sort in C++ STL. Fantastic. Here's another C++ thing, right? So that first thing is useful. So using multiple search strings is obviously the first thing you want to do. And then for a particular programming language, if you start the search with the name of the language, it really does help quite a bit. Now, some other stuff that you can do, oftentimes, especially with programming, you'll be dealing with like a specific computer like error or problem or something where there's some very specific wording. In those situations, you can do the normal search that I'm showing you here. But another trick you can do with Google and frankly in pretty much any other search engine is you put things in quotes. So if I do this and I say sorting algorithms, right? Now what's going to happen is the search that it does is going to look for these exact words in this exact order. So it's going to be looking for web pages that have that information exactly that way. So I do this, right? And look, now I get some different answers pop back out, right? Because now it's internal details of STD to sort, right? And the word sorting algorithms is absolutely something that it was looking for. And this is very helpful when you get into compilation errors because they're going to be using very specific error language that'll pop back out that'll be kind of universal. And so many other people may have gotten that same error. And it's unlikely you're going to be the very first person to ever have that problem. So you can just put that error message directly in here, right? So like here, I don't know, like undeclared identifier here. There's a classic, right? Put it in quotes like this, right? And then you can get what is undeclared identifier, right? And now you're looking for things that are very specific to the problem that you're having, right? So this is a very typical trick that I think a seasoned programmer would have when they're trying to figure out a problem. It can be helpful. So using the quotes. And then the last thing I'll mention here with the kind of using multiple search strings to help you refine your search is if you do a bunch of searches and you're still just, yeah, man, you're not getting it, you're not getting what you want. Another thing that Google does for you, which is nice, and I think some of the other engines do this too, is if you go down here to the bottom, they actually will give you some other related search strings to try. Right. So in this case, I think these are based on what other people on the internet who are using this search engine have tried before, and so it's trying to help you out. So in this case, it's saying, well, look, I saw those words, but I've seen other people who search for things like use of undeclared identifier, C++ array. Well, that's much more specific. And so it's trying to help you out. Like they actually give you suggestions for other little phrasings that you can use. So here, I'll scroll back to this one, right? So here's another one that's use of undeclared identifier, Xcode. Oh, that's now we're getting into like the Mac world, right? And so these things right here can also help refine your search string. So using the programming language name as a start of the string, and then also putting things in double quotes, and then using the bottom search results is a really handy thing. So now here's another tip that you can try. So I'm going to scroll back here. I'm going to actually go back when we were doing sorting numbers. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about something we talked about previously, which is this idea of using publish dates. So again, in programming, it is very nice to get current information. So like here's an example of one that was published in 2019. Here's one 2018. Here's one 2011, right? So this is what I'm talking about. Like a lot of different, especially for programming, it's pretty typical that they'll have a publish date there. And the more recent, the better. that's usually the way that I like to roll. And so with that in mind, sometimes if you just want to filter out anything that's past a certain point, and to help with that, Google has a tool. So another little tip you can use if you're doing searches and you want to get some more recent information, because notice how in this algorithm it's not using the date as the thing that's giving it the most weight. It's just the words you're using. And so stuff from like 2011 are showing up in this list. Well, to help with that, you can come over here to this little tool right here. It's literally called Tools, right? Click on that, right? And then that will open up this little panel right here. So if you take that away, that goes away. So this panel shows up right here. And this gives you the power to only return results within a certain time frame, right? And so you can actually put in your own range, which is possible. But for me, a lot of times I'll just pick past year, right? And that means that now it will only give me back the search results of things that were published within the last year. So now I'm looking at everything I get here is 2019, 2020. That's really recent. This is wow, this is June of 2020. This is like crazy recent, And this can be really handy for narrowing down your search to making sure you get the latest and greatest stuff. Now, this isn't always necessary, and sometimes, especially for if you're doing some just kind of core programming learning that just the core concepts, the year isn't as big of a deal. But when you start getting into like very specific problems and very specific error messages, very specific technology that you're using, which are constantly being changed over the years, this is an invaluable thing to do, is to limit your search to things that are the most recent, because that article from 2011, which might have been perfectly valid and good at the time, may not still be as perfectly valid and good anymore. So using the Google tools to filter the results by the date published is another good trick. And then the last trick that I wanted to talk about is just one more thing that you can do. So we talked about making sure to look at the URL of the place that you're going. So this one's edureka.co. Wow. Softwaretestinghelp.com. Softwaretestinghelp.com again. Right. So getting familiar with these the sites that you find to be the most useful to you is really helpful. And so let's see here. I'm going to go back a ways, because I'm going to get out of this sorting number algorithm. I'm just going to go with sorting algorithm. Let's see if we can get back to, let's see here. Let's see one that we did before. Didn't we have, you remember how Geeks for Geeks were showing up all the time? Here we go. When to use what sorting algorithm. So when you're paying attention to those URLs and those specific places that you're going, it might get to a point where you really trust that site, especially with maybe like a certain kind of search. And so it might be that you want to search, but you really just want to know the results for that specific site, rather than searching for just any site in the world that has these matching words in it, right? And so with that, there's actually a neat little trick you can do in Google, and actually other search engines have this. So let's just try doing a search for a very specific place. So I'm going to go with site, and I'm going to go to a site that I've used in the past, Quora. And now look what happened. So now I'm getting search results, and they're all coming from the same place, Quora.com, Quora.com, Quora.com. So if you have a particular trusted website that you like to use to do certain kinds of searches, but you don't necessarily want to have to go to that website and do the search, you can do it from the comfort of your search engine. You can just type this in, punch in the name of the site, and then you can do your search just like this, and everything is cool, right? And then if you, let's say you want to do it at a different site. So another site, one of my favorites actually, is stackoverflow.com. So now I do this search, and bam, and now look what I'm getting. Now every single site is from Stack Overflow. So this is a really nice way of refining your search based on a specific website that you want to take a look at. So just to review, then that's the last bit here, and I have a couple examples. So using multiple search strings, using that filter for the date published is also a really great one, and then limiting your searches to very specific trusted sites is another great way to get different search results from your searches, and then to continue to combine that with the other tips I've shown you, with like opening up separate tabs or putting it in Pocket, or bookmarking stuff or doing Control-F in the web page. All of these things combined can really help refine your search and make it so you can very quickly get at the information that you're looking to get. So these are some of the sites that I personally would recommend for doing research in various ways, and I'm actually gonna spend a little time on a couple of these. But Stack Overflow is my personal favorite for solving specific problems. Now, this is definitely not the site I would go to like learn a programming language, but it's a great, amazing tool for getting answers to kind of very specific and esoteric questions that you might have, which is often the case for programmers. We've seen Geeks for Geeks a few times pop up here. There's also Tutorials Point. They've been around for a long time. They have really good walkthroughs of things. W3 Schools has been around for a super long time, also good. So these three I would say are pretty good at like a walkthrough of certain pieces of technology. Quora is kind of in the same vein as Stack Overflow. It's a question and answer site, so it's got good stuff there. Good old Wikipedia. I mean, it's been around for forever, and honestly, it has comprehensive information about just about any subject you can think of. So I will sometimes find my way there and use that as a reference. And then GitHub, I have here, it's a desperation move. I'll even demonstrate how this is a desperation move, but in a pinch, I have even used them to help me do my research. So to kind of walk through this a little bit, I figured I would just start off by going to my favorite site, Stack Overflow, since I already have them up here. Let's go here. So I'm going to walk through this. I'm going to give this sort of a shameless plug because I like this site so much. I feel like it's actually worth it for me to just walk through a little bit of how it works for anybody who's hoping to use it as a research tool. So if you're a programmer, this is great. Although Stack Overflow is just one of a whole bunch of sites now that I think are part of the I think it's called Stack Exchange. In fact, here, let's do this. Stack Exchange. And they have like a whole, hot questions. They have a whole kind of universe now that is just about question and answer sites. And so this has a whole bunch of different places you can go here, all sites. I think, in fact, if you go here, here's all of the different categories of things that Stack Exchange has. So there's a whole part that's just math questions, right? And here's a whole bunch about Ubuntu, and here's a whole bunch about Arcade. Here's one about English use, which I've used that one before. It's kind of nice for figuring out if you're using words the right way. So they have a whole kind of universe that they live in. But this really all started with Stack Overflow. This is really their big claim to fame. So if you go there, in fact, here I'll punch out of this. So here's how it works. Let's say you have a question and you cannot find a good answer for it online. You've searched high and low and there is just nowhere to be found. Well, this is where Stack Overflow really shines. So if it's a programming related question, you'll have to create an account. It does have an account you have to create, but you jump in here, and then somebody posts a question. Now I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use one that clearly there's one here already. But you could post a question. I will say this before I go forward though. In my entire career, which spans well over like a decade and a half, I have probably posted like a handful of questions onto this site because 99% of the time, the question that I am looking for has already been asked and answered by somebody else. And it's very rare that I've actually run across a truly original problem that nobody else has ever run into and doesn't already have an answer or a workaround for. So I would just point that out that you don't really need like an actual account to use this. I'm not even logged in right now. So you can use this site as a reference tool without any login. But if you ever want to, it's actually a worthwhile thing, I think, for most programmers to go ahead and create an account. So anyways, this person created a question, and their question is titled Sorting a Table C++, right? It tells you when it was posted, so that's nice. They ask the question right here, right? And this whole bit here is just about the question itself. And then this really neat thing happens is that other people can come in here and they can vote on the question. They can even say this is a good question or I have the same kind of question. And the way that the question was laid out was nice and clear. So they can upvote it. So that gives you like a little hint at like whether this is like a good question or a common question, right? People can comment on the question. Sometimes people even put little answers in here, right? But then the real magic happens when you scroll down. When you scroll down, that's when you start seeing the answers. So basically, any person on the internet can post an answer, who has an account, can post an answer, which is tons of people, and usually they're pretty good. They have like these nice, especially with code, they'll actually like format it really nice. So again, you can just copy and paste. I can just here I take that Control C. Here I'll open up Notepad again. Remember from earlier, Control V, and now I have that. So that's always really nice. Um, but then the part that I like the most is this voting feature, right? So if you're doing this, if you're a research person and you're just trying to find the answer, other people will also use this site. And what ends up happening is the answers that are the most valid or people have found to be exceptionally good, they will vote up. And when that happens, you end up with this number that basically tells you how many other people thought this was a good answer. And so it has a built in way to check the credibility or the validity of any question that's being asked here. Now, in this particular case, it's not a lot of votes. The check mark means that the person who actually originally asked the question, which is Vincent here, he got an answer that he thought was good, so he went and said, "Yep, this was the answer. This solved my problem." Right? So that check mark is also kind of nice, but that was just one answer, right? So you can keep going down. Look, here's another answer, and look, this answer, even though it wasn't the one that Vincent voted as the correct answer, this one actually got an upvote. Somebody else looked at this answer and was like, this is a good answer. I like this." So then they gave it a little up mark, right? Here's one. This is the last answer on this one. It doesn't have any votes, and it wasn't accepted by the original person who posted the question, so it doesn't have anything going for it, but it might be worth it. And there are tons and tons of questions. And you can search their site and just put in whatever you want. So let's say I wanted to search for, I don't know, C++ functions, let's say. Right, and now look, here's all these questions, and look, actually tell you how many votes it has. So look, how do JavaScript closures work? Well, that's kind of weird that that came up with a C++ title, but here we go. The definitive C++ book guide and list. Why do we need a virtual functions in C++? Here, that's a good question. And look at all these. So that a lot of people, thousands plus people, voted on this question. Lots of comments, and look how many people thought this was the right answer. There's 26 answers. This one has 2,700 different answers, or I mean upvotes. That's a pretty trustworthy answer, right? And so this is the thing about Stack Overflow that I personally really love, is this ability to instantly get some really good vetting of the answers that I'm looking for. All right, so I highly encourage you. It'll come up a lot in your searches naturally, or you can do the thing that I was demoing just a minute ago, which is using the site. So coming over here, I'll just commandeer this now, and just typing site colon stackoverflow.com, and then your search. So you could search for, I don't know, variables, C++ variables. Let's go here. We'll go Java variables, right? And boom, all of them are Stack Overflow, right? And then you can go in here and look. Here's another one with 219, and it's just it becomes a really nice place to go. The other one I have on the list here was GitHub. This is the only one that I will mention how I have used it for research. The other ones are pretty straightforward how you can use them. So sometimes, this has happened very rarely, sometimes I am searching and I just, for the life of me, even on Stack Overflow, I cannot find an answer, and I don't want to like post a question, because that's, if you post a question, you are going to end up waiting at least a little bit of time to get the answer, although sometimes it's pretty quick. And so sometimes, as a kind of a last ditch effort, I will go to GitHub. If you don't know what GitHub is, here I'm just going to type in github.com. Okay, so that's the site that I'm going to go to. And basically, GitHub is a version control repository. It is a place that uses a version control software called Git, and people can just put all of their source code into this kind of freely available public storage place. And so I sometimes will go to GitHub to do a search and just look at thousands of other people's code to look for examples on how to solve a particular problem or how to do a particular task. And so here's what I'll sometimes do. I'll go to GitHub. You need to be logged in, so I'm already logged into this, right? And then I'll come over here to the search section right up here, right? And here I can actually search for whatever I want to search for. So let's say I want to search for functions, right? If I type the search in there for functions, this is the results that pop back out, right? And look how many repositories it went through. Now, the part that I will do, and this is why you have to be logged in, so you do need an account to do this kind of a search, you can search for code. So I can literally just tap here, and now I'm getting all of the code results. So any of the repositories in the huge pile of code projects that are in here, it'll look through all of the ones that have been open source, and it'll just find me anything that had the word that I searched for, which was functions, right? So I'm gonna just come through here. Let's see here. They're all C++. Here, this one's TypeScript. Let's go with HTML. I don't know. How about globalfuncs.html, right? And here, and now I'm looking at somebody's code. And so I can just look at this, and sometimes I'll use this as an example to see how other people have done something. I don't necessarily recommend this for new programmers, but if you're somebody who's been doing it for a while and you're just kind of like, wow, I really need to know how to do something, there is this massive library at this point of people who are just like, posting their code for others to look at. And I'll just go into this one. It's like an 8.h file for somebody. And you can just see their code. You can just see how they did it, right? And I think that personally, that ends up becoming useful every once in a while. Not all the time, but it is useful every once in a while. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to talk about in this very long video is one more resource that I want to point people to. And this is really more geared towards new programmers or people who are trying to learn a topic in maybe a little bit more of a traditional fashion. But it does fall under the category, in my opinion, of internet research. So here, I'm going to go back to Google. Okay. And there's other equivalents to this, but this is the one I'm going to show you. A site that has been around for quite a while called Google Books. They have a page here called books.google.com, right? So click on that. And basically, this is a humongous repository of scanned books that Google has scanned in and made available to you. It's been around since 2004, which I thought was crazy because I didn't learn about this until maybe about like 5 or 6 years ago, and I was just like, wow, it's been around for that long? That's crazy. But it has a tremendously huge library of scanned books that are freely available. And some of the books, not all of them, but some of them are fully available, so which means the entirety of the book you can just view on the web for free, which is just crazy to me. So, like for instance, let's say I was interested in getting a good C++ reference. Let's say, so I could go C++. That's all I'm going to type into this, and look what happens. Here's all these books. If you're somebody who likes to read in a more kind of classic book format for your research, this is amazing. Like, so basically, this one here is from actually the creator of C++ back in 2013. So I click on this, and then this pops up, and it is. I'm just going to scan through it now. It looks like, yep, this is pretty much the entire book. You can zoom in so it's a little easier to look at. You can also search within the book, and I think this actually will search the entire book for words. So let's say I want to learn about functions, C++ functions, and it'll just tell me all the places where that word shows up, right? So let's say, like, I don't know, Y functions. There's a great spot, right? I zoom in a little, and now I'm reading a book by the author of the language. I mean, and it is basically his entire book. And I can, again, search for something else if I wanted to learn more about it. So if you're learning a new programming language for the first time, this can be fantastic because you can just get a book on the topic, or several books if you want, scan through them, and or read them fully if you want. A lot of them are just up there for full-on viewing, and that's great. I don't necessarily recommend this site if you're trying to do a specific search or something on a very specific like topic or subtopic. Technical books are much more geared towards folks who are trying to learn something new for the first time. And if you were trying to do something like that, that's where I think Stack Overflow, like I was talking about earlier, like or Quora or many other like kind of forum-y or question and answer sites, those are much more useful in those situations. So that pretty much wraps up my my tutorial. I hope that this will prove useful to anybody who stuck it out for the whole video. And if nothing else, even if you aren't a programmer, there was probably something in here that will help you doing research in any kind of discipline that you might be interested in. All right, well, thank you and happy researching.